Now, here's your host, Alana.
Welcome back to the Alana Show. Today we're featuring Restoration Bridge International. At a time when prices are rising, resources are tight, and families are struggling to make ends meet, one organization is standing tall in Palm Beach County, serving love by the truckload, one box at a time. Today on the Alana Show, we're honored to highlight the incredible work of Restoration Bridge International, a nonprofit organization that's rescuing food and restoring dignity across our community. You'll hear from two powerhouse leaders, Jason Mandle, Executive Director of RBI, a Navy veteran with decades of experience in logistics and efficiency, who has tripled RBI's output since stepping into leadership, now distributing over 1 million pounds of food and reaching more than 100,000 people every month. Michael A. Barnett, Director of Development and a lifelong public servant, attorney, and former Palm Beach County Commissioner, who is using his deep roots and relationships to expand support for this vital work. Together, they are pushing forward the inspiring mission started by Pastor Daniel West to bring food, hope, and love to those most in need. Visit restorationbridge.com to learn more, get involved, or donate. And Jason, thank you for your service and all that you're doing now. So let's start with your journey from the Navy to logistics to nonprofit leadership. What called you to join RBI and what keeps you going?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me here. You know, what keeps me going is just seeing the faces on all our, clients that line up for our food at all of our distribution events. Personally, I've always had a heart for service, whether it was the military, or volunteering with various organizations back home in New Jersey or down here in Florida. I always had a heart for service. And, when I showed up to Restoration Bridge as a volunteer, I fell in love with the mission. I fell in love with how we were impacting so many lives through food. And I just never left, so the impact that we're having on our clients is what keeps me coming back and working so hard every day.
I love that. And what was it about, Pastor Dan's vision that made you say, this is where I'm needed?
Yeah, it wasn't just food. I had volunteered with other organizations and packed food boxes and bags. At Restoration Bridge, it was more about the individual. And the story behind why this individual is in line for food. So it was more about the individual and, neighbors helping neighbors.
Amen. I love that. And you've overseen a threefold increase in food distribution. Very impressive. And at over 200 events annually. What does that scale look like on the ground? What does a typical week look at RBI look like?
Busy. Very, very busy.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, so at the scale that we're operating, it's with the minimal amount of resources that we have, whether that be employees, money, volunteers, it's just very, very busy. The demand keeps increasing. If we show up, and do our best, it's really through the impact that we're having that keeps us all motivated to do the work. It's a lot of playing Tetris in our warehouse. It's a lot of partnerships and various different community organizations, law enforcement, which is one of our largest partners, the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. It's a lot of partnerships and individuals and organizations stepping up to do what we do.
And that's community. That's one of my favorite things in the world. Thank you both again for being here. And so what challenges come with scaling that quickly, and how do you keep things running smoothly?
I come from an efficiency background, logistics background, operations background, obviously through the military and former, employment. So what we really did, we did when I took over operations going on 4 years ago, is we just looked at how we were operating and really dialed things in on an efficiency basis in order to support the increase that was coming. And through that, we were able to, triple our impact, feed 3 times as many people as we had been doing with essentially the same amount of resources just by, dialing things in on an efficiency basis.
And how many years have you been there?
A little over 3 years.
Okay.
Like I said, started as a volunteer,
Awesome.
Took over operations, and now I'm blessed to be the executive director.
Excellent. Did you see an increase between years of the need, or were you just growing?
The it's hard to gauge the increase year over year because we're doing it a little bit better. We're adding more distribution sites. So there's not a consistent goalpost where I can say, this is the increase because we're doing things a lot better. We're expanding. We're making more partnerships. We're adding more events.
I love it. All right, Michael, you've served in law, local government, and now development for RBI. What inspired your transition into this mission, and how are you helping to build support needed to grow it?
Well, very glad to be back with you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Anytime. Thank you for all you do.
Certainly. My time as commissioner over the last 2.5 years inspired me to be more community-focused and outreach engaged, and Restoration Bridge offered that perfect opportunity. I got to know Jason Mandle, Dan, Pastor West, and the folks at Restoration Bridge during my time as commissioner. They were very good to the people in my district, those who were suffering food insecurity in my district, in the Lake Worth corridor, Green Acres, Palm Springs, not to mention other areas where Restoration Bridge serves. We are dealing with a crisis of lack of resources, which I addressed as commissioner, and the Board of County Commissioners frequently discussed at our meetings. But Jason Mandle and Restoration Bridge was on the ground meeting with people directly, confronting this food scarcity crisis with the resources that they would bring to the Housing Resource Center, the Senior Center, different churches in my district like Christ the Redeemer, Church by the Glades, every Saturday and every day during the week, out there feeding people. I would witness these lines of cars at the distribution sites. My staff and I would come and show support to RBI and even participate in passing out some of the food every now and then. These lines would never get any shorter, hundreds of cars long, coming from the south end of the county to the middle of the county where my district lied. It was a culture shock for me to see just how much of a need there is for food and other resources among people in our county, and from Lake Worth to Green Acres to Riviera Beach to the Glades. And I wanted to help. I wanted to make sure that people understood it was not just a job for me as commissioner. I wanted to make sure they understood I was part of the community and wanted to do everything I could to help this community that had adopted me into this part of the county. There were other groups like Adopt a Family, but Restoration Bridge, I worked very closely with them more than any other group. They seem to do so much with so little. We receive tons of food from agencies that partner with us, from Feeding South Florida and others, but our people are primarily volunteers. We have very low overhead, a great partnership with the Sheriff Bradshaw, who has graciously allowed us to rent a warehouse facility at the stockade for low cost. But it's something that people do because they love their neighbors.
Amen.
And you have to, if you come to our food distribution, you'll see and talk with the people who benefit directly from these food drives. It's an amazing thing. You get far much more than you receive when you participate as a volunteer or if you donate financially to RBI. It's making a really serious, meaningful difference in our community.
Excellent. And what are you seeing in the community that reinforces the need? I mean, outside, the demand, but what do you see that reinforces the need for RBI's work?
Well, I meet with elected officials. I meet with leaders of the Chamber of Commerce, business owners, people who I've met and who have supported me during my time as a commissioner, who supported my campaign. I tell them about Restoration Bridge, our history, as Jason spoke about with you just a few minutes ago. They, a lot of times, have never heard about Restoration Bridge International, the work we do, in particular in Boynton Beach, where we have our largest food drive every Saturday morning. This was news to some of the leaders in the city council who we invited to come and participate on Saturday mornings to see exactly how RBI's work benefits their citizens in Boynton Beach. They're very impressed, and they love the fact that we're doing such great work helping people in their residents in Boynton Beach. They've actually approved a contribution of money to Restoration Bridge International at their meeting last night, for which we are incredibly grateful for. Other folks, whether they are developers that I've worked with, people who are building homes and commercial areas in this community, in this county, like GL Homes, who graciously made a large contribution a few weeks ago, or Florida Power and Light, who's known for sponsoring worthwhile and charitable causes. They're also supporting Restoration Bridge International and many others, from lawyers to business owners. They see that a lot of them come from areas of the county that is this type of lack of resources is unfamiliar to them. So that they're being exposed, as I was, to a new form of, I wouldn't say crisis, but it's a serious need that's only growing more and more. Mm-hmm. And agencies like Restoration Bridge are just barely filling the gap or creating.
They're really filling the gap. I mean, I think it's just impactful to meet somebody that is passionate personally, and then, they say food, water, shelter are the three things, what is it, Maslow's? Mm-hmm. Maslow, excuse my pronunciation, Minnesota. No, it's my fault. But it's, before you can get anywhere else, you need to satisfy those three things. Right. And then you start to prosper, which brings me to the next question. The impact. So you're helping over 100,000 people every single month. Can you share a moment or story that really sticks with you, a time you knew this work was changing lives?
Yeah, I'd love to. There's so many over the years, the conversations that we have and, the people that we meet. And, for me, it's very important that it's not just food. We're not handing food and saying, we'll see you next time. I want to know what's going on. I want to get to the underlying cause of why you're in need of food. We live in a county, like Mike was just speaking of, 1 in 5 children is food insecure in this county. And it's something that, that was a piece of information that was a shock to me. I didn't know. I moved, down to Florida, for the sunny weather and the beautiful beaches, and I didn't know that there was 200,000 people in Palm Beach County that, didn't have consistent access to nutritious food, and that's what we're really dealing with. And, so I do have those conversations at our food drives. And a gentleman that always comes to mind is a gentleman named Mike. We start our Saturday morning food distribution at 9 o'clock in the morning. And when I show up at 4 o'clock in the morning, there's about 100 cars already in line. And, I talked to some of the first cars in line, and they've been waiting since midnight, sometimes prior, the previous day, sleeping in their car to be the first to get that food. And, I struck up a conversation maybe 3 or 4 months ago with a gentleman who was first in line, and he, consistently first in line. And, I met Mike and I said, what brings you out here? And he, just explained, he has 9 or 10 individuals in his home and, 3 or 4 generations, and it's just so hard to make ends meet. He was working and, it was just, hard to make ends meet. So this, explained how it was such a relief to be able to take a grocery line item off of his budget. And I said, Mike, why don't you come and serve with us? So we invited Mike to our warehouse where all our volunteers, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, help sort the food and, do some quality control and unload vans and build pallets. And, so we invited Mike in and to see our warehouse and see what we do. When he had a day off, and he did that. And then on Saturdays, we invited him to come serve with us. And ever since then, he started coming out and serving with us every Saturday. And, it wasn't just, here's your food, we'll see you next time. It was, what's going on in your life, and why are you here, and how can we help you better? And I've always had this approach that it needs to be neighbors helping neighbors and communities helping communities. And so we invited Mike to our warehouse to come volunteer. We invited Mike on his days off on Saturdays to come out and serve with us instead of just waiting in line for food. And he's done that ever since. And he's come out and served with us and gotten his food at the end of the distribution. So it wasn't just handing food. And he's, Mike is there this gentleman's there every Saturday morning with just a bright smile on his face. And it, if I had just said, well, thanks for coming, we'll see you next time, we would have never met Mike, and he would never had the opportunity to come serve with us. It's just a beautiful story, and there's so many other stories like that where we can get to what's really going on with the individual, because I want to solve this thing. I want there to be no hunger.
That's what I was thinking. I'd love to see you guys go out of business.
Me too. That's it. That's the goal. That would be the best day.
And then we move on to the next one, right? I love that. How about you, Michael? Have you, in your short time there, well, I'm sure you've seen quite the impact. Have you seen individuals?
Well, I haven't had many opportunities to be out at the distribution, but when I do, it's a great joy meeting with volunteers who take their own time away from their family and friends to spend a few hours in the morning to pack up cucumbers or green beans or produce, or unload banana boxes and pallets to organize for the long line of cars waiting to drive through with their trunks open or their back doors open, and it's like I said, it's really rewarding to be able to give back, and this is a way that people can help their neighbors, their communities, by supporting people. We've seen them talk to the press. So we had a WPTV interview Jason and some folks at the warehouse who came to pick up some food, and these could be anybody, could be your friends, could be your family.
I'll have to stop out and volunteer.
Please.
Yeah.
Folks who just fell on hard times. They may have been successful in their careers and then got laid off, and have nice cars that they drive up, and people say, why are they driving an Escalade in this line? They don't need food. Well, those people, you never know what their personal situation is. They could be living in those cars. And a lot of folks I've talked to actually are. There's a big homeless epidemic in the center of the county, Lake Worth, my district that I represented, in addition to a food scarcity crisis. So I have learned that you can't judge a book by its cover.
No,
you support everybody, and I believe Restoration Bridge accepts anyone who comes. We've never turned anybody away, not for their own personal circumstances or for lack of resources.
Reminds me of that book, The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. In that he's talking about how some guy's on a bus and he's annoyed by this other gentleman's kids running around and screaming, and the dad didn't do anything. He's just sitting there, and he snarkily says to him, do something about your kids. And the guy says to him, I'm really sorry. Their mom just died in the hospital. I'm not sure what to do. And he said at that moment he had an impact of, you don't know what somebody's going through day to day. But I think that if anybody has been hurt or going through a struggle and they meet somebody personally that is passionate about helping them, that is like food. It's that's going to help you grow, huge impact. So thank you both. All right, so how can people right now, whether they're individuals, businesses, churches, or schools, support your mission or get involved with Restoration Bridge, such as myself?
Yeah, well, we definitely need help. It's expensive to do what we do. It's labor intensive to do what we do. We are able to do this very efficiently. So, money is our biggest need. It's, the efficiency in which we operate, 98% of every dollar, 98 cents on the dollar goes to feeding people.
Wow.
Very, very little overhead. We're able to rescue and redistribute food for 7 cents a pound, which is just, very, very low as far as the industry standard. So money's our biggest need. Even at 7 cents a pound, it adds up because, we did 13.4 million pounds of food last year, which is a lot of food. The only thing that is holding us back from really getting to that end zone, which is that nobody's going to bed hungry tonight, is money. We have such strong partnerships. We have such strong relationships with law enforcement and the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, and it's really the only thing that's preventing us from adding more food distribution events is the money. So if people can consider us when they're deciding on who to give, it would be restorationbridge.com, and keep us in mind.
Excellent.
There's also a telephone number if people would like to give by phone. You can text the word give to the number 561-639-8636, or also, as Jason said, visit us online at restorationbridge.com.
Beautiful. So what's the biggest need today? Oh, we just covered that.
Money.
Let's get them some money.
I can talk about it again. Let's talk about it again because we definitely need help.
I do. I really want to drive that home because, and especially the way you handle it. Like, what is it, 97 cents, 98 cents?
Yeah, depending on what year we're looking at, about 97 to 98 cents for every dollar goes to programming. Very little overhead.
Thank you. And what would happen to this community if organizations like RBI didn't exist? And what message do you have for those listening who might think someone else will help?
Yeah, I thought that, so I can speak personally that, there were programs available and, the cities or, the state or the federal government was going to step up. And it's just not the case, or there's a lack of education, where people don't know how to seek that help. What would happen is people would be hungry. The people would go to bed hungry. And the way that we set up our food distribution events is that conversation, right? That underlying cause. What's bringing you out? to our food distribution, and then let's try to address that underlying cause, or point you to the organization that can help you with transportation or help you with finding a job. We can talk about the direct correlation to crime statistics, where crime goes up if people are hungry and stealing items to sell for food or stealing food. So what would happen is there would be a large gap if we had to shut our doors. Is a lot of people would need help. So we're stepping up to give them that help.
And have you seen someone, come in line and then, get where they need to be in life, and then take those steps and then come back? I love that.
All the time. And not only just not show up again, in line for food, but circle back and volunteer with us.
Beautiful.
They get back on their feet. We don't ask questions, like Michael was saying. We treat everyone with dignity. So I don't know what's going on with the person coming through in a brand new car. We don't ask questions, but it could be something that they're getting right back on their feet. And I have many stories of individuals getting back on their feet and coming and serving and giving back. And passing it along, paying it forward.
Beautiful.
The more people I run into, the more they learn about Restoration Bridge and the work we do, and they want to support us. And like I said, mayors, city council members in Green Acres, to Boynton Beach to the Glades, they've already worked with us in the past. Restoration Bridge has a long history of setting up food drives at community centers, at churches, food pantries. Some of them I got to witness and experience and help set up myself when I was county commissioner. And in my meetings over the last several weeks, they want to continue that because they understand that not everybody's doing well in this economy. Things are improving or so over the last 6 or 7 months nationally, but at a microscopic level, people are still suffering. They're not yet feeling the personal the benefits of lesser inflation or reduction in taxes, and there's still a great need in this wealthy county, one of the richest in the country. It's still inconceivable that people would line up hundreds of cars at a time for food, or face the possibility of having their electric turned off or not being able to pay for their medical or medicine, or having to do without. It's a real need, even in a wealthy county like Palm Beach County. And Restoration Bridge is there, been there for 20 years, and will continue to be there, but we need people to help support us financially to pay for the overhead expenses, which, again, are minimal, but we can't operate unless those are paid.
Well, we got to hit that $200,000 too.
That's right.
See it start going down as well.
Yes.
And invest other ways in the community, which is fantastic. So what is next for RBI? And what's your vision for the future? And how can we, as a community, be part of it?
Yeah, so we have a pretty unique business model in the fact that we do this through partnership. When you boil down what Restoration Bridge is we're a logistics and an events company. So we're solving the logistics problem with the retail stores where they're taking perfectly good food off the shelf, and we're rescuing that food. And then, the events, that we run 20 to 25 times per month, is really what we do. So the future looks like expanding that, and expanding that geographically, and, possibly taking this model where we, are partnered with law enforcement. So at every one of our distributions, there's a uniformed Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office deputy helping us. So taking that model of, rescuing food and redistributing it in partnership with law enforcement, community organizations, and expanding to neighboring counties and, expanding within Palm Beach County, obviously, and getting to areas that, are underserved. There's a lot of food deserts that we would like to target, where there's not a grocery store within walking distance. And, that's what the expansion looks like. That's what the future looks like for us.
Do you deliver people?
We don't directly deliver, but because we have such a close relationship with community policing deputies, every day.
They are excellent here.
Amazing.
In Palm Beach County,
Amazing.
I've never.
Just the heart, some of these community policing deputies, uniformed, deputy, firearm on their hip, but just the heart. And we don't deliver through, Restoration Bridge and our vehicles and our employees, but we provide food to community policing deputies on an emergency basis. Wow. And, they'll call me at 10 o'clock at night. That there's run into a family with nothing in their pantry and 4 kids, and a lot of these deputies before our relationship were going to Publix and taking money out of their own pocket to purchase the food, but we're able to, allow, the deputies to access food through our warehouse conveniently on a Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office site up at the PBSO stockade. And
that's the coolest thing I ever heard. See, you think of, back to donating, restorationbridge.com, but you think of other, organizations or groups, whether they're asking for money or volunteers, but this is such a direct impact. You could, look out your window out of your condo and see this going on. You're in Boynton Beach, correct?
Our warehouse is at the PBSO Stockade facility, which is by the fairgrounds, and then our largest food distribution event is at the Boynton Beach Mall every Saturday.
Okay.
During the week, we're in various locations out to Belglade, up to Jupiter, down to Delray, and those rotate on a daily basis. And again, at restorationbridge.com, there's a list of all of our events updated on a monthly basis. So we're everywhere.
Excellent. I love it. Did you want to touch on that, Michael?
Oh, well, you mentioned the serious need in our county. I was reminded of a particular event that PBSO worked with us on at Casa del Monte. It's a really rundown trailer park on the outskirts of District 3 near Green Acres. You think third world and then think what could fourth or fifth world possibly look like? In America, you would never dream that such conditions would exist, that people would live in. A lot of people from out of the country, immigrants, who are living 5, 6 families inside one single trailer. I've been inside these trailers. I've seen what they look like. Not fit for human habitation at all. And I walked with deputies from the Homeless Intervention Team, PBSO, and Restoration Bridge, bringing boxes of food to these families who had nothing else, literally nothing else. It's amazing. We are blessed to live in this country. Those of us who were born here and don't understand what squalor really is, and that it can exist right here in our backyard. And Restoration Bridge is meeting that gap and connecting the bridge between people and resources. It's really important work that we're doing, and I was so excited when they invited me to be part of this this work of gaining exposure and helping to raise money for RBI so that they can continue helping people who really need it the most.
Likewise, I'm glad they called on you, because otherwise I wouldn't know about it. So thank you
for getting the word out.
Oh, anytime, yeah, and I look forward to volunteering as well. And so, anything else that you want to touch on?
Want to talk about the thrift store?
Yeah, so very, very quickly, we are in the very, very early stages of expanding our operation to include a thrift store. Just a little income generation, revenue brought in where we're able to get household items and clothing to the public. More information to come. Check out restorationbridge.com.
Excellent. Michael, good. Well, I look forward to anytime you want to come back on if you have a big event when the thrift store opens. Would love to have you. And God bless you, gentlemen, and all the lives that you bless. So, and if you're listening and thinking, I want to help, this is your moment. Whether it's $10 or $10,000, a monthly donation, a volunteer shift, or a business partnership, Restoration Bridge International is making every dollar, every hour, and every act of kindness count. Go to restorationbridge.com. You can donate, sign up to serve, or connect with their team today. In a time of inflation, food insecurity, and hardship, this is what love in action looks like. Let's be the bridge for someone else. Jason, Michael, again, God bless you and all the lives you touch. Thank you both for your service, your leadership, and your hearts. We'll be watching, supporting, and spreading the word. And you, thank you for listening, and follow me on Instagram for updates. The Alana Show. Stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you, Alana.